I'd like to introduce Bill Bent and Ben Green. Let me talk a little bit about Bill. I've known Bill for a very long time, and Ben also. In Bill's case, let me just explain that he's a veteran in our industry, 30 years, and has been at Academy since 2007. And he's helped take Academy from a regional player that was well established to one of the top purchase lenders in the country. And under his supervision, Academy has really grown to over 200 branches nationwide. He's originated nearly $5.5 billion in production, and all at the same time staying. Academy is very focused on the purchase business. When you look at Ben, Ben's also a long career in the recruiting side of it. He's been with Academy for 2 years. He's the head of their national recruiting manager. So I'm very pleased to have both of you here today, and certainly I'm sure everyone would love to hear what you have to say. So Bill, why don't I start out by asking you, how did you come to this whole issue of deciding to have a rookie program, and what was it like corporately to get that installed in your business?
I'll be glad to answer that, Pat. So good morning, group, and my pleasure to be a guest on the panel. And I do have experience in the rookie program even before my Academy days. So I basically have had two employers in my 29 years. The first company was Waterfield Mortgage out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. We sold it, though, after 77 years in the industry. And we started a rookie program there, and we made our share of mistakes. And the one aspect which I really love on Pat's program is she is so much on the money on the slide she's already shown. And what I experienced as we were growing Academy, first the industry went through so much change in 08, 09, the whole industry kind of got reset, and then a reestablishment process to get the industry to get maturity in. So through that process, we were just bringing on a lot of experienced people, and it became clear, though, that as the companies were getting more mature, including Academy, that the opportunity now to change a component of our focus to focus on the rookies because of the aging of the sales force. As Pat already mentioned, that the stat she pulled from Rob Christman's blog, 54 years old, and then the disconnect from the sales force on a whole to the first-time homebuyer market with the age difference. And so we're very focused on the purchase market, and I saw that gap increasing. And then with our previous experience, when I say that Waterfield Mortgage company I was a part of for many years, we saw the results you could achieve if you did have that wider net approach and really more corporately support. Now, we were not as sophisticated with it as Academy is, and I'm so happy with where we're at. Ben's going to fill in on some of those details and with it. So that the essence of why we did it, and the process is kind of there. I'm a big believer of the book Good to Great, written by Steve Collins. One of the number one issues is get the right people on the bus, and the recruiting process of how to find that right people. Pat gave some of the details, and that is a critical component of it. If you get the right people on the bus, even if you didn't do the greatest job of training and coaching, you're going to be very surprised with the results that you end up getting. Later when we get in the conversation, I'd be able to share with you exact results we got at Waterfield because we tracked it very carefully. And now Academy, we haven't done that aspect yet, but we're close to getting that part done.
So, Bill, was it hard for you from a corporate standpoint, talking about Academy, in other words, to get the buy-in? Obviously, some managers don't like rookies, and certainly others do. Why don't you talk a little bit about that issue of how you got everyone to this agreement that you were going to pursue this as your growth strategy?
Yeah, so one of the starting points was our commitment to get a recruiting group internal at Academy so that we could have a group to help drive the process. And it is, corporate. When we left it up, that's one of the gaps we experienced at Waterfield. We did not have the same level of corporate commitment, even though at the top was committed, but we didn't have that internal recruiting department driving some of the process. So we used more the branch manager in the selection process. We didn't do the assessment to the same level that we do today, which is very important. And so the branch manager back at this Waterfield company I was a part of handled more of that selection process, and really what it boiled down to was we tended to hire family and friends, the branch manager and the referral partners. And while we got some good candidates out of there, it was limited to the degree of the success, versus today. And as the conversation came up and the opportunity came up, I just, with my past experience, was able to show the executive team and our ownership group, if we took the more complete approach, I showed them what the results were without taking a full complete approach at Waterfield, and that got them very excited. So it wasn't hard from the standpoint of my experience and the ownership of the company's commitment to be long-term focused and sustainable. But many companies, they might have a little more of a challenge to overcome to get that full corporate commitment.
So, Bill, was the resentment at the local level, or because, as I mentioned, certainly what I see is that some managers, when you say the word rookie, they run out the door, and so was that hard to, kind of get their buy-in?
Well, yes, it is, and there still exists even at our company a little bit of that issue in certain parts of our management team. And again, though, we go back to my previous experience doing the rookie program, and the branch manager drove more of it, and we got more family and friends of the manager and their relationships, the branch relationships, and so the washout rate, the attrition rate, was higher than it could have been if we were more sophisticated. And so managers that still struggle with it, I think they're not maybe fully bought in and driving, the process. And but the ones that do, we're extremely happy with where we stand today and our initial results on our full focus with the program.
So, Ben, maybe if you could talk a little bit about what is it like from a standpoint of recruiting, and if you could talk about what that looks like on a regular basis for you.
Absolutely, and thanks again, Pat, for having us, and thanks to Bill for joining us. On a day-in, day-out basis, this is just a very exciting process for me and for our team at Academy. And I think, that last question posed to Bill is why it's so exciting. Has it been hard to get buy-in? Yes, we're still going through that every day. Because of the average age of the originator, we know most of those originators turned into managers, and that's who we are pitching our internal program to. And there are some pieces of what's made them who they are that make it tough to break through, even though, again, we have that corporate push. We have the internal recruiting team identifying some great talent. But each and every day there's a little bit of that, how are we going to get the extra buy-in? How are we going to advance this a little bit more? And it's made it very exciting for me. As far as, my personal opinion on how you get that buy-in best, you really focus on ROI. Got to be a return on investment. Your previous question that had come up a few minutes ago about the break-even point. What we've done to help get that buy-in and help get this program off the ground is we've built the program around what we call kind of a qualified mentor approach, so that there's immediate value that first year plus the value once they're a senior LO out on their own, month 12, month 13, and beyond. So versus having to wait for them to figure it out and decide what their business development plan and agenda is going to be, we've identified sharp, driven talent that can help grow someone else's business, this qualified mentor or qualified branch's business, in that first 12 months to give some more immediate ROI, knowing that we all agree the big picture is on target, but we needed to get something out of that first year. And that's really been our approach to recruiting, is to identify talent that, one, is of course going to grow to be a great originator on their own one day, but two, is sharp enough and driven enough to bring that immediate talent to help us get that breakthrough on the buy-in with our management out in the field.
So, Ben, are you looking at just college graduates, or are you looking at people that have worked? Talk a little bit about basically that issue.
Absolutely. So the framework for our mortgage career development program is built most specifically to target recent or upcoming college graduates, and so much of our college recruiting is done focusing on who may be graduating this May cycle, for instance, and we start these rookie classes within 30 days or so post-graduation, so that we've got people that are ready to hit the workforce and ready to get out there and make a name for themselves. But you don't want to have the reins so tight on this person has to have graduated in the last 30 days, or we don't want to talk to them or don't want to consider them as a candidate. So you have to leave that little bit of wiggle room for, again, a quality employee referral, as you said, or someone that may see us on a job board, that graduated last year and maybe picked the wrong job right out of college, as a lot of us have probably done. I certainly goofed around for a second. So you focus on college graduates because they're going to be driven, they've proven a certain level of commitment, but you also want to leave a little bit of that room for those other outstanding candidates to find their way to you.
So how are you selling your career development program to a college graduate who, let's say, knows nothing about the mortgage industry and is deciding that they might be interested in it? If you could walk everyone through kind of what steps do you take, and are you doing their job fairs and so forth? Is that how you are approaching it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is one of my favorite parts of on-campus recruiting, is the ability to control the message. We work in an industry that received a black eye not too long ago and is still fighting its way back from that, and you get to go out and be the face and the voice of why things are getting done better today. That's one of my favorite parts of the job. As far as job fairs versus other on-campus recruiting activities, it's our belief that job fairs are just a little bit too, I guess maybe too public. You're going to have such a large crowd and such a small target audience that it can be a little difficult. You'll have people that are freshmen, people that are seniors, people that are chemistry majors, people that are sales majors.
Right.
So what we've done is we worked more specifically with the career counselors and in some cases the deans of business schools to identify targeted classroom environments that will let us present to a class. So a lot of fine universities around the country these days are offering classes such as urban planning or real estate finance or even mortgage-specific classes, and we're working to build relationships with those professors and those deans of business schools to be able to speak to an audience that is, again, much more targeted at who we think may be a fit for us.
So from your viewpoint, so is this postured as a 12-month training program, or is this postured as we'll train you and then we assign you to a local branch office? Kind of talk a little bit about that issue.
Absolutely. So we break it into two phases. This is a little bit of a morph of the original plan of 3 phases, and again, this is going to be a case-by-case. You really want to do what's best for the rookie candidate as well as the qualified mentor that's working with them. But to give it its best definition, we'll call it 2 phases. One that's a corporate training of right now about 10 weeks that involves some working them into the academy culture, which is very important, as you said, on the retention piece of this discussion. That involves pre-licensing training. That involves, being a resource for them during their federal and state education process right up to the point of the test. And then once they're licensed, for the second half of that time at corporate, that involves some loan processing shadowing so that they can get to know files inside and out. That involves training for your specific LOS that you might be working on. as well as having realtors and other business partners come and speak about their part of the business and what would be important to them if a loan officer was trying to earn their business. So that's phase one that takes place at our corporate office. And then phase two is that qualified mentor phase where they are out in the field working almost as a pseudo loan officer assistant or team loan officer, something that a lot of us are familiar with, where they have someone taking them on sales calls. They have someone that's giving them some warm leads to follow up on. They have someone that's drawing in business that they get to then work through the LOS and make sure they're understanding, again, every single piece of a file while they're also being trained and taught by this qualified mentor on how to go make this their own. So again, phase one, corporate training for about 10 weeks, and phase two, give or take about 6 months is what we commit them for, and then at that point the expectation is they're going to be about ready to roll on their own.
So, Ben, when you're looking at the qualified mentor, how does the person become, in other words, how do they identify that do they raise their hand and say, I want to be a qualified mentor, or you look at a geographic area that you want to increase production levels and that's where the person ends up kind of getting focused to?
Yeah, this is another fun part of the job, is identifying these qualified mentors, because you do want to make sure that you're putting your rookie candidate that you're investing so heavily in a relationship that's going to be successful. So we've actually found most recently that the program's off to such a good start and gaining such momentum that we have a lot of hands being raised, but those may not be true qualified mentors, meaning they may not be at that point in their career where they're quite ready to give back to a rookie and bring a rookie in. So again, better to have too many hands raised than not enough. What we use as kind of criteria in shaping a qualified mentor is someone who may be a top producer for Academy Mortgage and perhaps missed making our President's Club sales trip or service expedition by just a couple files and could use a little extra bandwidth in helping them get there this year. Or maybe someone who's expressed to their regional manager that they would like to be a branch manager one day and would like to have someone working under them so they can develop their leadership skills. So that way you're again adding career development to both the qualified mentor and to the rookie. As an extra incentive, we have all the files that are going to come from this team, because you now have the mentor and the rookie. Files that are a part of that team dynamic go under the qualified mentor's name, again, to help get them qualified for, again, perhaps a President's Club trip or something of that nature. So that's been our approach in identifying these qualified mentors.
So have you ever had to, Ben, kind of reject somebody who wanted to be a qualified member and a mentor, and therefore, I mean, how does that get handled?
The answer to that is yes, and the answer to that is delicately. And again,
right.
You want to make sure that you're honest with everyone about what the program's objectives are, and more than anything, if it's not a fit right now, give them an opportunity or a goal for them to go work towards so that they can participate in it for next round. So if you look at it, again, not on the negatives of,
Sure.
You're not good enough for our program, but here's what we're trying to get out of this initiative, and here's how you can position yourself to participate in it, then
Right.
You're going to have a lot more understanding conversations.
Right. So I guess talk a little bit about, in other words, so when they move out to the branch level, are you monitoring their development? In other words, is corporate now, just sitting back and the qualified mentors reporting into you about what they're doing from a development standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is kind of yes and kind of no. There is absolutely extended training being provided by our personal and professional development team, one of the very neat teams that we have at Academy Mortgage that shows our commitment to growth of our employees. So this group has, I think right now 2 or 3 follow-ups with each rookie and each qualified mentor per month during that 6-month cycle, and then is developing an even longer-term plan to make sure that they not only get out on their own, but that they become a top producer or a President's Club qualifier themselves one day. But then at the same time, these qualified mentors know what they're doing, and we don't want to say from the corporate office to all 1,000 of our Academy loan officers, this is how you do it.
Right.
We trusted these rookies into these branches because they met the qualification of they really know what they're doing, and we want them to get a chance to shape this young person's career a little bit. That's what they signed up for, and that's what we want to make sure that we give to them. So there is some corporate oversight, but also not daily checkpoints of you better be doing this or else, you know, we can't have you participate anymore.
Have you had to, because you're dealing with Gen Y, have you had to really kind of change your recruiting message? In other words, this is a different generation, and you know they're going to text you before they're going to email. I mean, talk a little bit about the Gen Y experience that you're having.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is again where I talked about on-campus recruiting, getting a chance to control the message, really define what our industry is for these people. There was an article actually yesterday in USA Today that one of my fine team members tracked down that talked about the loan officer being a top 3 most enjoyed career, and you know, most young people coming out of college are doing the research to find that sort of thing. And so it's really important that you get a chance to brand the company well, brand the position well, because, again, these students know how to go out and find what they're looking for or identify the culture that they want to be a fit for. So I think message management and company branding are crucial with Gen Y. As far as speaking to the profession of a loan officer to someone that might be right out of college and meets that Gen Y criteria, a couple things stand out that you'd want to make sure you're identifying. Kind of an entrepreneurship spirit, a lot of flexibility in the workday where you get to define where your 50 hours might come each week. We just want to make sure you know you got to go out and work hard and earn your paycheck, but it doesn't necessarily have to be at your desk 8 to 5, Monday to Friday. That attracts a lot of Gen Y talent. And then probably more than anything, and this really suits the Academy culture well, is commitment to your community. A lot of people want to give back. A lot of people want to say they helped someone these days, and they may be even more worried about that than having some special title of Senior Director of Mortgage Origination. So we get a chance to, again, brand the company and the position of a loan officer as one that gets to be involved with their community, be of service to others, and those are things that are important to the Gen Y crowd.
Right, that's actually a great point. And actually maybe, Bill, if you could talk a little bit about your corporate program just for 30 seconds, that you do take your top originators outside the country to help other people, which I think is a fabulous strategy and actually just smart business. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we started a few years ago the opportunity to do, we did some international service work. That was our first focus.
Right.
We went to Guatemala, adopted a village there, and did some service work. And now this year we're going to be going to Peru in September. We have a village we've adopted. And what that becomes is certainly we help the international community when we've done the international work in those villages, but it also is life-changing for our people. Most of them have never been on a trip and service work. And it truly is life-changing. And then we've also done a lot of domestic work now too. But I think it all started with the life-changing experience off the international work that we did, and we stay every year consistent with.
So when you go to recruit Gen Y people, is this something that you're talking about, that this is part of what you do at your company?
Absolutely. You know, again, our company is one that wants to be a part of our communities that we originate in and be a part of communities around the world and give back to less fortunate around the world. That's something that we're not shy about, something that's very much a part of our DNA, and so that comes up in conversations all the time. Now, you don't want to oversell that and say we take all 2,000 employees to Peru this August. It's fair to be honest and say it takes hard work to get there, but if you give us that hard work and work with us to develop your career, we want to make sure you get opportunities that you may not be provided elsewhere.
Let me ask just a couple more questions, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience today. And I guess the first question, the common theme, and I know, Bill, you've heard this over the years, and Ben, I'm sure you have too, that if you go and train these people, they're going to go and leave you. Talk about that. And so a lot of companies use that as the reason why they never start any of these types of programs.
Yeah, I'll make my comments, Ben, if you want to add in. My experience with that, Pat, is that you're in such a better position to have long-term commitment from the people that you bring in as rookies, and then that you help grow their career. They don't tend to leave you quicker. They tend to stay with you much longer term, and because they're so appreciative of the opportunity, and they're so they love the culture so much. And I think I'm a good example. I was a rookie one day. That was 29 years ago, so not 30. And you know, that Waterfield ended up selling it after many years. So in some ways, you can say I've had one employer my whole career, you know, from Waterfield to Academy. And
Sure.
you know, but I've always chosen the culture and what we're about as my first priority before I ever decided where I was going to work, and that included with Academy, even though we were much smaller when I joined them. But we're still so much about our values, and I got the sense of that day one when I you know, interviewed with them, and I think the top people you bring in tend to see that better and tend to be long-term a part of your company.
Right. Ben, any thoughts on that issue? Because obviously what I certainly I hear companies talk about, you know, is that, well, you know, if we go through all this and then basically they're going to go and leave us, then I have nothing, so therefore I'm not going to do anything.
Well, yeah, a couple quick thoughts to that. You spoke to the retention numbers, and you do fantastic research and developing that content, and so I absolutely have faith in your numbers, and I think that answers the question for us. But the other piece of it is, you know, again, just being proud to work for someone and feeling like you're giving back to the industry. I can live with someone getting trained here and moving one day for something that may have been good for them and their family, knowing that I put in my hard work for a company that believes in developing the future and is making this industry a better place. So will you lose someone at some point? Yeah. Will it sting a little bit? Sure. But it makes me a very happy, proud Academy employee that we're giving back to the industry by developing this talent. So I'm okay with it.
Well said. I mean, it's, again, I think when you hear managers talk that route that they don't start it, I actually think there's a lot more going on than just that issue. And typically, people aren't leaving companies, they're leaving managers, so it does say something about them. I have a question from the audience regarding compensation, which is always the age-old question with rookie programs. How does Academy kind of look at this? Is this a 12, it sounds just from what you're saying, it's a 12-month focus, and how do you, in other words, is corporate taking most of that, and then the branch gets, when the person actually goes out to the branch, then they start absorbing it? Why don't you talk a little bit, either both of you talk about that, Bill and Ben.
Ben, why don't you go ahead and answer first?
Sure, absolutely. So there is a small monthly salary that the corporate starts off paying. We also you know, pay for certain training expenses to make sure they have the tools they need to during their corporate training cycle. At that point that they graduate through phase one and move out to phase two, that salary is then absorbed at the branch level with the addition of developing a, you know, some sort of additional override plan based on volume that they're able to add to that team during that qualified mentor / rookie stage. The rookie also has an opportunity to pay back, based on the volume that they bring in, some of the expenses that were invested in them in their first couple months of the company. Therefore, you know, becomes a situation where it's not a giant sunk cost at the corporate level. The branch is getting increased volume to grow their business right out of the bat, and the rookie is getting a chance to, again, I guess you could say, expressed appreciation for the investment that's been made in them in their early career. So we find that it suits all three sides pretty well.
Great. So from the standpoint of, I know that you've been doing this now for, I guess, a year and a half or so. What has been the performance? Someone has asked on the webinar.
Yeah, it's pretty new for us, so we don't have the results that Bill was able to measure at Waterfield quite yet. We're certainly excited to get there over the months and years ahead. Our first group is just finishing their qualified mentor/rookie stage, phase 2 stage out in the field right now, and we've seen about a 35% uptick in the team volume for those relationships. So that is the one measurable that we have so far. We have another large group that's actually going to be relocating out to their phase 2 out in the field here just over the next 10 days or so. So we hope to have a lot more data to work with in, again, the months and years ahead. But right now the early numbers are about a 35% uptick in volume for that team that's being supported by this rookie in their first 6 months out in the field.
So from a numbers standpoint, then when you're looking at like 2015, how many rookies would be going through your program?
Yep, so we've had 10 that joined us in January that I said are just about ready to relocate out to the field. We expect to have another 10, maybe plus or minus 1 or 2. It's obviously much more important to identify the right talent than to hit a quota.
Right.
But we would expect another 10 in March in May, post spring graduation. And then we'll consider a few options for the fall. And Pat, this will be a fun conversation for you and I perhaps down the road. I think I teased you with it last week, but we're considering the option of having another sales class, but we're also considering the option of even developing a rookie ops class at some point that we may use that fall time block for. So at the very least, we'll have 20, perhaps up to 30 to answer your question.
Right, right. And I guess in the big picture, if you had to say the one thing, since you've now been doing it for a while, that you would want the audience to really focus on from a recruiting standpoint, what would that be? And Bill, I'd like to hear your thoughts too. So Ben, you first.
This is your time to go get to make an impact. That's, again, why I get excited about going to a college campus or putting up a LinkedIn ad or doing some sourcing online, whatever it may be. Is I feel like this is an opportunity to make a positive impact on a great industry, and that's something that I'm very appreciative for.
All right, Bill, your thoughts. One thing that you've learned since you did it at Waterfield and now at Academy, what is the one thing that you've learned that you'd want to make sure that the audience would think about?
Well, simply put, Pat, the presentation slides that you went through are exactly on point. And if anyone participates, with getting a program going, I highly encourage you to utilize the presentation that Pat presented to be more encompassing in the program. And then I think you can drive great results. But if you kind of just patch it in and only do pieces here and there, then I think you'll get more frustrated with the results you're seeing.
Yeah, I think I certainly would emphasize the same point. I mean, over the years when we've done this, people will do parts, like they'll worry about the training part, but they really haven't thought through the recruiting part. And then the other part that's really critical is the coaching side after they graduate from the training side of it. And a lot of times companies don't look at that part, but that is really the ongoing training side. So you need to have really put in place the 3 parts of it for sure if you want to be successful with it. I want to thank Bill and Ben for sharing their wonderful information about this important program. Academy is a class act, and I'm very privileged to work with you guys, so I certainly appreciate it. I know that Bill and Ben love LinkedIn, and I know they would like to be, certainly I would recommend that you connect with them through that, and certainly I know that they certainly would share any thoughts or any questions that you might have from the presentation today. We will send a copy of the presentation to you, and on the podcast, we do put them up on our website, so you certainly can hear this again. It takes us about 10 days to do that. So thanks, Bill, and thanks, Ben. You were terrific. I certainly appreciate it.
Thanks to everyone for the opportunity, and thank you, Pat.
Yeah, thanks a lot.